Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today we got some more RPG horror stories. This is my favorite one to cover because it's just kind of a break from everything else. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Don't forget to comment, interact with the video, and all that kind of stuff because it really does help the channel. Also, if you use gamer subs, use code KEYZ at checkout. Thank you. Dirty USB. Wizard makes a blind character and then gets upset when he is blind. Lighthearted. Was playing in a 5-player group in college with a guy that wanted to make a blind wizard who relied on their bird familiar for sight. However, he was also constantly telling his bird to give other players the help action, essentially giving the martial characters on-demand advantage. DM said that the baddies were probably gonna start shooting at the bird that's been pissing them off. Wizard gets pissed and says the DM is unfairly targeting him and that it's not fair for me if I'm just permanently blinded for the rest of the fight. DM says that if the bird stops harassing the baddies, they'll stop targeting the bird. Wizard refuses. Bird dies. Wizard is blind the rest of the encounter and sulks like a baby. Maybe don't put your only pair of eyes in horrible, terrible danger. See, the thing is there is nothing wrong with having a character design like this. I like quirky, cool characters. One of the coolest concepts that I saw was a magical wizard head that could grant sentience to the object it's sitting on, and it was sitting on a scarecrow, so the player was actually just a fucking scarecrow with a magical wizard hat on. It was a really cool character concept. But if you're gonna do that, own the concept, advantages and not. As an example, if that hat gets knocked off the scarecrow, they're kind of fucked, and they accepted that. But he had a pretty easy thing going for him too. He had a cool concept, blind wizard, bird that tells him what's going on, and he had the bird start harassing the people they were attacking. Of course they're gonna throttle the bird out of midair and just deal with it then. Why wouldn't they? DM very clearly warned him, he fucked around and found out, and that's just how it is. Here we go, fuck me up. D&D 5e. I need advice on how to deal with a blatant cheater. So basically, I'm the DM and I've had smaller issues with this player before that I've mentioned to them and they've vaguely been resolved. I've noticed that they've had more than their fair share of high rolls but never brought it up. I guess I thought it would look like too much to dump on them if I said this too. Turns out, another player also thought they might be cheating and started recording all the rules the problem player has had, and goddamn, I'm embarrassed I didn't realize how bad this is. Over 10 plus sessions, it's first session, 4 times, second session, 2 times, 5, 1 time, 6, 1 time, 9, 1 time, 11, 1 time, 13, 3 times, 14, 5 times, holy shit, 15, 5 times, 16, 6 times, 17, 4 times, 18, 7 times, 19, 12 times, 20, 18 times. Holy hell. My man is getting far more bold with it when he realized he could get away with it. Good God. That's 18 nat 20s and 70 rolls that they have been rolling a crit 25% of the time. Not to mention rolling 20 twice in a row 5 times in this group of data. It's mad. I don't know how to handle this and would love some advice from anyone that's had this sort of desperate to win player. I'm planning to tell them to switch to D&D Beyond's dice and see what happens. Edit, we play online but everyone has their own physical dice sets they use. Well, if you play online, then definitely just start using the digital dice. It's a better way of getting a semi-random number that's not controlled by the dice and they don't really have a way to fudge it. But they could also then start fudging their character sheets and, get a couple extra bonuses here and there, and you don't want that. So if you don't want to call them out directly or risk them fudging their character sheet, my recommendation is start throwing in some rolls that require you to roll low in order to pass them. It's definitely a bit of an inverse skill check, but it does give them the impression of just, oh shit, my high rolls aren't going to actually do what I need them to do anymore. Because if he's lying about nat 20s, he's also lying about how often he's getting 15s, 16s, 17s, etc. It could be a number as high as 13, but they can't roll higher than a 13 or else they fail. It's definitely something where that is a DM choice, and I don't think it's in the DM handbook anywhere. I would need to double check, but that's something that I found that kind of, really throws a curveball at people that I think are lying about their dice rolls. It's also a major, major, major red flag that another player came to you with this data. Because if they've noticed it, other players have noticed it too, and they're probably pretty frustrated with the fact that this person just gets to waltz on through and constantly be the hero or always just never in any kind of peril whatsoever. But yeah, if you're comfortable with doing public dice rolls, that's probably your best bet, but if you want to be sneaky and sly about it, inverse dice rolls. Just if you are doing inverse dice rolls, make sure you account for the modifiers. I'd be curious for those of you who are listening what your own personal ways of dealing with cheaters are, because we all have our own fucked up ways of dealing with them when they really get under our skin. B08A. DM. Players spamming skip dialogue while I was setting the scene for the players and role-playing the NPCs, then left halfway through the one-shot. Hi, I just wanted to rant about a problem player I had in my party. This person, who I'll call R, has been quite a problem player in my game. I've posted about him before on the r/DND as he was adamant about PvP but ended up agreeing with my terms regarding it. I'm a new DM and this was my first time actually DMing and I put a lot of effort into setting it up. The party consisted of a Kemono Mimi dog bard, cat warlock, and a tiefling warlock. Yes, I know, very balanced. An Oathbreaker paladin, R's character, edgy backstory and all. And a fairy artificer, R's BFF who just went along with anything he said. All of these players, except the Kemono Mimi dog bard, were new to D&D, and the bard having DM before. Honestly, such a great player in person and gave me great tips for the one-shot. Now, the problem started as soon as we started the session. I was running one of the modules from Candlekeep Mysteries on Roll20 since it was more accessible to us all. R couldn't be on the voice chat for some reason and his BFF as well, although he was able to before. As I was explaining to the party and introducing them to the setting and role-playing the NPCs, he kept commenting how bad I was at role-playing and kept spamming skip dialogue in the voice chat and moving his token wherever. He also kept drawing dicks on the map and made a Seely's Corner for him and his best friend, the Fairy Artificer. Afterwards, a bit further into the campaign, he still made the same comments and also kept moving his token around in some restricted areas as well. I probably should have put it in the Fog of War, but I forgot to, so that was honestly my fault. However, after that, as soon as the party were getting deeper into the story, he just leaves, out of nowhere, no text, no nothing. Afterwards, his best friend left as well. I tried to involve him and then into the story and get him to interact more, but he just didn't. I would just be met with insults and shut up, until he just left. Not like he lost internet connection, he was still online. He didn't want to interact with the other players other than be hostile to them except his best friend, and he just kept insulting me as a DM. Luckily, this didn't deter me and my party and we just continued as normal. My tiefling warlock got pretty upset though because they thought it was rude and R had been getting on their nerves for quite some time. We ended up having a blast aside from the long arduous combat when they accidentally aggroed the entire map. However, it ended well and we ended up with an epic showdown against the big bad evil guys. Afterwards, my player told me they enjoyed the session and the just say Neko, please! Kenonami Bard complimented my DMing style, especially for a new DM, which was really nice coming from them and gave me some really great tips as well. The Bard also commented that the type of player that R was very problematic, and said that there would be an immediate kick from them at their table. Afterwards, I was honestly pretty upset, especially as he had the nerves to talk to me afterwards at a game like it was all good. I ended up talking to my partner and my friends about it, which includes the Tiefling Bard, and they tell me that I should just talk about it with him, but I don't want to confront him while I'm still pissed. I honestly have half a mind to kick him from the group, but my partner says to talk to him first about it to not escalate things any further. And because R had been going through some shit recently, which might have affected his behavior, recently moved out, broke up with his girlfriend, etc., which I agree with. That's all. I just found it funny how in the previous post I made about R that it would end up on RPG Horror Stories, and it did. Not so much a horror story though, and I admit I was not the best at role-playing, but it was also my first time and he knew that, and as a friend IRL, the least he could do was be nice. I'll talk to him about this when I've calmed down, as this has been an issue in other areas as well, and I don't appreciate him just disrespecting me, even if it was a joke. I still want to DM, but I don't think I want to DM for R anymore though. Too Long Didn't Read, R insulted my DMing skills during the one-shot, was hostile to other players aside from his best friend, and left midway through the one-shot without any explanation. The strangers on Reddit were correct. Honestly, your first mistake was using Rule 20. That is... If you don't, actually use it 100% correctly, there are so many ways to break the game. The fact that you can drag a player token, it maintains vision, and you can kind of, swipe it around the map and see all the monsters and everything that's ahead of you without anyone knowing, kind of is just broken. I don't know if the person I was playing with just set it up very poorly, but, yeah, that's a major exploit that should probably be worked on. And I will admit that in Roll20, when I noticed that I had a pen tool, I also drew dicks. I also drew several Garfields and used them as my familiars that I would summon. I would summon a familiar and just drag in a really crude drawing of Garfield. But Roll20 is incredibly, from my experiences, boring to use. That being said, telling your DM to skip dialogue is extremely rude, extremely disrespectful, and I'd probably just kick them right there and then, or just end the session, because that fucking sucks. But it turns right back around when OP is looking at just simply removing R from the friend group entirely because of their actions within the D&D session. Sounds like R is going through some stuff by OP's own admission, and OP definitely needs to take a breather before further action, because kicking R from the friend group, especially when he's an IRL friend, over this is, that's a bit much. You definitely don't have to play D&D with him anymore, but don't remove him from group chats or anything like that, because you were personally slighted by his behavior. And it sounds like he's also going through a lot, and that might just escalate his negative emotions. It's not your job to be his therapist, but at the same time, you give him a little bit of breathing room. But definitely don't hesitate to kick him next time if he tells you skip dialogue while you're explaining something. And a princess, but they're using 3s and 1s instead of letters. The familiar we talked about for 2 hours outside of session is actually just an owl. This was maybe a year ago, before session 4 or 5 of Minds of Foundelver, with some randos online. My arcane trickster got the spell Find Familiar. I told my DM I wanted to give my familiar a personality and lore, and she seemed excited and even enthusiastic. We exchanged ideas for about 2 hours over text about my character summoning the spirit of this old acting coach to come help the party. I even told her about the ritual and the flavor I wanted to give it. When it came time in the session, she yada-yada'd away my ritual, then let me describe what the owl looked like. I told the owl to introduce herself to the party, remembering how the DM told me over text what kind of voice she'd do for her, only to be told she can't talk because she's just an owl. This DM had made a separate voice channel in that Discord server for one-on-one conversations, so I asked her to talk there. I asked her why she totally changed the character we made together and agreed on, and she just started yelling at me about how she can't pull all her focus on just one player. So I just left. Okay, I think the DM may have gotten a bit overwhelmed, and that's why they decided to drop the entire idea. That does really suck that all that time and effort that was put into it just got, zapped away like that. And the DM definitely should have had a conversation or a DM beforehand, hey, I know we talked a lot about this, but I don't think I'm in the headspace or have the DMing ability to really handle this kind of thing. Is it okay if I just make it like a regular owl or something like that? Doing that in front of the party is kind of embarrassing for everyone involved, and that does suck. I don't blame the DM in the slightest for not wanting to put that much effort towards one specific player when the others don't have that kind of care and love, and it can definitely feel neglectful if you're a player in a campaign and it's very clear the DM has a favorite. But they 100% needed to have a conversation about this before just, zipping it out of existence and calling it good. Cleftes, I think. Campaign gone horribly right. I started this current campaign with a small group near the beginning of COVID. Just me and 3 players, meeting once a week in my house. 1 player entered and 1 player exited. Otherwise, it's been the same people throughout. Fool that I am. I expected it to fizzle out from schedules, etc. before it went too long. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to practice world building. So, for the first time, I did a fully homebrew setting. Lore, pantheon, all of it. I had a seer give them a cryptically worded prophecy with 5 different plot hooks, so they could walk in any direction and find a villain. I also threw a couple of off-the-wall sessions like, during a shared dream, you Mad Max across Avernus to deliver a pizza, because we're just screwing around. Why not have fun with it? Oh, the hubris. The fool that I was. The party is super into it. They take way better notes than I do. They remember the melon vendor in the one town they visited months ago. And by golly, they want to know how his kids are doing. Some flavor text I threw in about, the war between the dwarves and the Dorgar has been going on for a century. Became a full story arc where they carefully established diplomatic relations with both sides and brokered a peace. They broke into the vault of D&D Jeff Bezos. They've gone hunting for moon rocks. The Avernus Pizza Run is established canon that they discuss in character. They decided to observe traditional funeral rites for a dragonborn dignitary they recovered the remains of, which meant that I had to make up what that looked like. Those poor damned fools. They're excitedly asking me what I have planned to throw at them at level 20, and I'm outwardly smiling and inwardly panicking because at level 14, They're already at the highest level I've ever DM'd for. One of the players even started DMing for the first time to give me more session prep time and to let me recharge my batteries by playing. This post is about real anxiety that I'm having, but also I'm 90% sure that at least one of my players lurks on this subreddit, and I wanted to give a shout out for this absolute unicorn of a game group that I looked into. Too long didn't read. My party is way cooler than me, and keeping up with their interest is a big anxiety. Look, buddy, friend, pal, in like most scenarios when you homebrew a setting, it is just 90% bullshitting your way through it, alright? Keep it up, you're doing good, alright? Don't be too worried about it. The best trick that you have up your sleeve is not retcons, no. It's called the unreliable narrator. No, that gnome little goblin thing, I didn't forget their backstory. They lied to you. That's the best way to deal with your own plot holes and inconsistencies, my friend. Because now the players get this one insert that you just simply fucking forgot, and now it's an entire plot point for the session so you can think longer, and they're trying to figure out why this fucking gnome lied to them about having a wife and kids. Huh. I'm a little too familiar with this, these kinds of fuck-ups. Deleted. Uh-oh. GM ends game after 5 sessions because we don't find official NPCs interesting enough. Happened while playing DNDHorrorStories, a German RPG with massive lore, with acquaintances in real life. Already in the 3rd session, we faced a corrupt mage who I knew to be a rather famous NPC from the RPG's heyday, which I took for an Easter egg and didn't think much about any further. In the 4th session, we met the High Priestess of the Goddess of Chivalry, whose church doubles as a Knight Order, also a famous NPC. I did play a knight myself and had some interactions with her on that basis, but after the game, the GM asked me why I didn't talk to her more. I said that I didn't think I had much more to discuss with her, and he replied that she's basically the head of my religion, so there would be endless potential for conversation. I kind of agreed, but said that I didn't really see much of a point in having a long conversation with an NPC. He went, well, okay. I guess in hindsight, I should have realized that he seemed agitated, but I didn't. Then, in the 5th session, we met a kind of Viking explorer. Yet again, a very famous old NPC. But I also took that for an Easter egg, especially since he wasn't really part of the plot, so nobody of the group engaged with him. As we say we leave the location, the GM suddenly gets angry and yells at us, being mad why we don't talk to the NPC more, and literally just listing official adventures and novels to us that he's in. We replied that we didn't play or read those, so he just doesn't mean anything to us. Not even all of us recognized the name. The GM then cussed at us that we weren't real DNDHorrorStories players and disbanded the group. We left his place then, barely an hour after starting to play. Edit clarification because it came up a few times, except for the mage who was only revealed to us before we had to fight him. The NPCs were not particularly relevant to the plot, especially the explorers seemed kind of like a random encounter. That's why I thought they were Easter eggs. I feel like this would be akin to playing like a Skyrim-style tabletop RPG and, having the GM suddenly insert like, oh, look right here, it's Jarl Balgriff, and he do be ballin'. You guys want to go interact with him? Kind of just feels like it's more operating off of personal nostalgia than anything else. I'm personally not familiar with DNDHorrorStories. I had to Google the pronunciation. I still don't think I can pronounce it properly. But it sounds like it's been around for a while, and I do wonder if the GM thought that he was just playing a game with fellow people who were equally excited to interact with all the lore and all that kind of stuff, and, had the realization that no one really actually cares about this piece of media property that he really likes a lot, and I wonder if that's kind of why he had the reaction he did. I kind of almost feel bad for the GM in this instance, but at the same time, it's not the player's responsibility to know all of the lore. It's the GM's responsibility to help convey that lore to the players. I mean, hell, he could have, helped introduce his players to the lore that he's so nostalgic about by being like, oh, here's this character here, you guys should, interact with him. And then slowly have the Viking explorer tell his stories and his exploits and all that kind of stuff and make him an interesting interaction and maybe have a fun item that he gives out. But that's more of if you're just trying to, introduce your personal fixations and nostalgia into a story. But hey, you do you, I guess. Just don't disband your entire party over it. Mr. Myget, 12. Character doesn't want to join the party. We're in a campaign that's been going for over a month. Players have been cycling in and out, and a new player just joined the campaign, playing a rogue. This rogue's first instinct is to sneak up on us, rob us, and sneak away. Upon sneaking away, I spot him, hold person, and take my money back before telling him that we don't want any trouble. He tells us he can't trust us. His character has a massive bounty on his head and he can't leave the forest. I think this is a perfect opportunity to get the rogue into the party because I had a bounty on my head until recently, so we'll just take the rogue to the guy who got rid of mine. DM says pure roleplay between PCs happens without rolls. Rogue insists to roll insight versus my persuasion. I get a 22. Rogue gets a nat 1. Rogue still doesn't trust us and tries to flee the party and hide until we leave. Does this guy even want to play D&D with us? Yes, he does. This is your archetypical, just edgy loner type. Okay, look, a lot of guys who start playing D&D, they go through this weird, broody, edgy loner type phase where they always end up playing some kind of fucking elven rogue that's a broody edgelord who's always like, the only friends I have are dead. I don't have friends. I don't make friends. All of you are idiots. My only friends are in the darkness. It's that kind of type of player. I went through that phase. A lot of people go through that phase. He's going through that phase. If you're starting D&D and you think, I'm going to be an elven rogue, everyone's done it. And if you've got someone in your party who's an elven rogue, just try to give them the found family route. That usually works with these types, all right? Celestina, I think. IRL players' true colors came out. Essay warning. Oh boy. I used to play D&D in a shop, which was great for meeting new people, but also leads to a bunch of RPG horror stories. In one campaign, there was a new couple in the store, recently moved in the area. A bit of an age gap between them, male 35, female 19. They ended up in separate games, with the husband joining our table as our GM made a space so they can join in. It was a setup where the world is being corrupted and our efforts were slowing down the efforts or trying to create setbacks before the final battle against evil. So the DM repeatedly had dangerous situations, and even NPCs we had grown attached to getting killed by the darkness. So this player joins, and he picked a hunter. He joined when the campaign was first scouting the possible location of the enemy's bases in the enemy's territory. Imagine a party essentially approaching the gates of Mordor from Lord of the Rings, escorting our wise and powerful mentor who we might as well call Gandalf. The DM was setting up a moment we learn of how terrifying the enemy is, and you shall not pass moment where our Gandalf sacrifices himself to save us. So when exploring, the hunter pretty much wants to not be involved with fighting the darkness at all. Bad fit for party and theme. Specifying he stays away to maximum range at all times, and during a troll attack, he was firing at disadvantage whilst my rogue was getting battered. He was quickly earning some bad rep as a player with the party with his antics, which led to the horror moment and final straw. We ended up at a cabin in the woods with a family there. There was something going on, and this is a secret, and we needed to learn it from this family. As a party, we were trying to earn some goodwill with them and gain their trust. There was a lot of caginess, but it was proceeding like a difficult social encounter could be. Hunter, again, was not wanting to work with the party, stuck to the edges. There was a DM statement about the little girl in the family knowing something of it whilst she was skirt peeking from behind her mother. The hunter decided this might be a good way to get the information. He started using some honey cakes to lure out this little girl in the woods. Whoa, man in the white van with free candy here on the side style. He was giving such attention to the details of how he was going to lure her out, going quite remote with this little girl, etc. It was very surreal and spoken as if given some real thought, far beyond what you would expect for such a play. The DM had the little girl share her information, but he seemed to continue with interacting with her, to growing unease. The cleric player next to me finally spoke up and said, "Calm down now, Jimmy Seville. Oh, they're British," which kind of broke the tension in the atmosphere. We laughed and made jokes to defuse the situation, and this allowed to snap back from what they were watching. Hunter didn't look too amused. The DM had the mother realize her daughter was missing, get hysterical, and we, as the party, helped her out. We get to the girl and the hunter, and the mother goes, "What are you doing with my child?" We expected some kind of apology or excuse from the hunter. We take the rep hit, and he shares his information gathered with us, except he doesn't do any of that. Hunter goes deathly quiet and just walks away from the party, not even replying to the mother or any of us asking questions. Right to remain silent style, as if an imaginary lawyer was giving him legal advice. His actions were coming off weird in character and with his IRL body language. We obviously asked him and prompted him to do some actions, but he didn't respond, as if not seeing the point, then started playing with his phone. Cleric expressed his own discomfort with jokes referring to the hunter's character acting like a nonce in this situation and how it was all very sketchy. Shortly after, Hunter's wife came to the table, saying she had a headache and he left with her. Given he was on his phone, we guessed he got uncomfortable with the situation and used her to bail out. And we did make a joke about that. We did feel some guilt about chasing the player away, but we were collectively what the fuck about the experience, and given he had soured us to him with his in-game antics prior to this incident by being a very poor player to the team, it was not a big loss for us, and the campaign continued. Hunter never turned up to the shop again after this, though his wife did return to her table. She left after a month or so. It was around a month after this when the DM was chatting with the other table's DM about both players. This was when we discovered she made a friend on the table, and they got speaking. One thing led to another, and the person on the other table found out some personal information about them. DM, after this conversation, sent a link in our Facebook Messenger group, and suggested we check it out. The link was about the hunter in a newspaper article which was also online, and its coverage is about a city from the other side of the country. Too long didn't read, we discovered he was on the sex offender registry for diddling kids in his role as a church youth pastor. It became clear he relocated across the country to escape his past. As you can imagine with age difference, it also turned out his wife was one of those he met within his role and married her when she grew older. Obviously, the cleric's first response to this was, "I called it, I knew it just wasn't right with what he was doing." And yeah, it all made perfect sense in hindsight. We were all very uncomfortable with his play in that scene. It is the very sickening realization afterwards that he knew what to do about luring the little girl NPC in the woods, and his actions around that because he most likely had a very real practical experience of doing that stuff. Also, his response to being called out was actually advice he previously received from his solicitor as well. Sick. Ugh. I don't think I actually have much to say on this one because this one's pretty fucked up. Yeah. Like, I've had players accidentally do stuff that's, like, really creepy. When you point it out to them, it's like, oh, shit, yeah, that is really creepy. But this is, like, dude got way too involved in the bit and realized that he was outing himself and then slinked away like the coward he is. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code Oz at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.